Live from Austin, Texas. This is the Plutopia News Network Happy Hour. Our guest this time is our friend David Demaris. And part of the Not Ready for Cable News players are here. I'm Scoop Sweeney, and our designated driver over there in South Austin is John Lebkowski. Hey, John.
You should never let me behind the wheel.
Which wheel is that?
Dangerous.
The grinding wheel?
The grinding wheel. No, the designated driver.
Okay. Well, you're designated something then. And hello,
Unless it's an autonomous car, I might not be safe. So David Demaris is with us tonight.
Hey,
and he's
John.
been with us before. How you doing? Dave is the person who came up with Plutopia as a name for what we do based on pluralist utopias. And he's also an Austin-based consultant. He's worked in semiconductor design for manufacturing, computational neuroscience, music and visual arts, and event production, a lot. So how's it going, David?
It's going good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Coming through loud and clear. And I'm just checking to make sure that we're coming through loud and clear on this Facebook page. Looks good.
We should mention also that David is the composer and artist of our theme song we use each week on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much, David.
Well, you're welcome. I thought it might even be about time for me to cook up a new one for you. And
oh, that would be great.
Do you work cheap?
Well,
we do.
Since you're recording, it's all set up to go. I thought, one of the things that we might do tonight is for me to do a little live jam and broadcast, over the Zoom, like by sharing my screen and saying what it looks like from here, but I could also be streaming it onto Twitch.
Oh, very good. Yeah, we're looking at Twitch as a channel because I'm sick of certain social media outlets, which we won't mention since we're on that.
Well, besides, we're kind of twitchy. We would probably be a really good fit.
Yeah. So, like everybody else, I guess the events that I've done, with one exception, well, two exceptions this year, have been virtual. So I know that that's one of the things that caught your eye when I was kind of thinking about what I did at the end of the year. I guess the in-person events that I did were, the Vortex Theater sort of stepped up and did a thing called the Vortex Odyssey.
Oh, yes. Heather told us about that. An amazing thing you folks pulled off.
Yeah, well, we kind of let the new generation steer the tech. And, they came up with something that I will say worked for some of the people, particularly like if you had a great network connection and a top of the line phone, chances are pretty good that you could get it to work. Not everybody, I think, had that situation. But we had, layers and fallback plans so that people had some kind of experience, even if the basic, conceptually brilliant idea that you use your phone as a device and you sort of drive from station to station and you're synced up on the fly with one of these apps that is really intended for like watching a Netflix party together or something, right? That was the design goal of that thing. And theoretically, there was some way that maybe people would be able to put in groups and kind of not have to do a lot of setup as they moved around. But I also don't know exactly how well that worked in the end.
When you say like put in groups, you mean like breakout rooms, kind of?
I was not super involved with that end of it. I think it might have been more of I think when you signed up for the performance, you were supposed to give some contact info, and maybe the kind of showrunner people were going to make a just like a text message group or something where they would, as you went to the next thing, they would send you a link.
Ah, I got it.
Pick that link. So, there were just like a lot of network things that had to all come together to make it as smooth as possible. And then the fallback with that was somebody comes around to your car and adds you into the session.
Yeah, I know that Rob Matney and Liz Fisher had done some work at one time with a sort of augmented play. This was before we were all driven into our little hovels and unable to get out. This was just, it was like a regular play, but it had tech augmentation, and there were text-based things you could do. I think you could send a text and sort of vote on what was going to happen next. And they had like multiple potential paths that they could follow, sort of like, they used to do those online too. You'd have like a hypertext novel that could go in multiple directions. So, but what you're talking about is really different, and I think more interesting. And in some ways, I think it's the idea of doing online events. The challenges are maybe more interesting than you have if you're using if you're in a traditional like physical space. You've got to figure out how to make the most effective use of the online environment that you have, and those online environments are still evolving quite a bit.
Right. I don't know with other guests whether you've talked about how theater is kind of trying to get work done, but in this case, we were really trying to still have it be a physical component where there were actors outdoors masked, and people were driving around, and ideally the idea was that they never really rolled down their car windows, so they were very safe, and the actors were supposed to be pretty safe. Like, I think there was a kind of pipeline for when people would come in and get their props and go set up their outdoor stage, because everything had to be like set up and broken down every night.
Is
a lot
there
of
any
parts.
Are there any like residual pieces of this online that you could share with us?
No, that was really a live event. I mean, I believe that there was a video document that was made, but I have not seen an announcement that that is up online or anything. Now, there was, as part of that whole thing, there was a separate and overlapping online component that was pretty, like, there were some things that were live stream Zoom sessions where you interacted with an actor one-on-one or in a small group or something. There were also other things that were just when you clicked on this interface where everything was kind of floating around in a wavy background, you picked either a live session or a video that was played back on demand. And I did one piece, I guess, for that I probably could find the video, but I would have to search around for it a little bit.
I guess part of the risk of something like of like working on these kinds of things is that you have to put so much thought and energy into the logistics that you wonder whether that has an impact on the actual dramatic or comedic or whatever effect of the work itself.
Yeah, well, I think with that, the Vortex Odyssey, I felt like that was definitely a risk because for the audience themselves, I mean, they had more or less, this tech that was in your face that worked or didn't work, as the case may be. And I said, well, maybe some critic is going to realize that that's like the great, the metaphor for our time. It's just, you'd like to just be having an experience and going on an odyssey like, that fellow did back in in the day. But no, you'll really have to sort of fight through a bunch of logins and
yeah, that sounds like life. The way life has been in almost any area. You're at the mercy of the technology, of the bandwidth that's available wherever you may be. You may or may not be able to do things.
Right.
I know one thing that I did find was this.
Yep.
And I noticed that, when this was like set up as, I guess, a stream, I see that there was a chat that went along with it. Was there very much activity in that chat? This is, I should mention, For Fear the Glass May Shatter is an opera that David wrote. And this is, it's available to stream on YouTube. And when it initially streamed through the Vortex, it looks like there was a live chat with it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if I was involved in the chat or remember how much was on there. I kind of don't remember at this point. And I did not know at the time that it would be replayed when you watched it. I mean, I think that's cool. I've participated in a lot of virtual conferences this year where the chat is replayed during a talk, for example, and that's
like this one will be.
Okay.
Well, let's see. I'm trying to see here. Live chat replay is on. Yeah, I guess that whatever went into the chat does replay. That's very interesting. I sort of didn't notice that when I first brought this up.
Yeah, live chats can be kind of risky because you'll get good input from some people, but there are others, the troll types, that love to go in and do inappropriate things in the chat. So there's always a need for an editor to nuke all the bad discussions that pop up.
Yeah, what happens if you've got a live chat open and Ted Cruz shows up? Oh my God.
Shut out everything and go home. Obviously, you're doing something wrong if you attracted Ted.
Well, so I guess one thing we haven't talked about is you've done a lot of work. I guess it's been mostly for the Vortex, but you've done an awful lot of production work, right, over the years?
I've certainly done my share.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with you on some things like years ago. The sort of seminal Plutopia project was something that you actually did most of the work on, which was the DIY Home of the Future that we did at Maker Faire here in Austin,
Right.
which I think was, what was that, 2006 or something like that. It was quite a while back. But, and that was a lot of work. And a lot of what we were doing was pretty creative, of just kind of trying to think what all we could include. And it was somewhat directed by what we were able to get from Derek Woodgate, the futurist that we were working with, who had a lot of concept stuff. I mean, we had several like poster kinds of things, mood boards, that sort of thing that he had worked with in various engagements he'd had where he was working on this Home of the Future concept and consulting with various companies. So we brought that into it, but then a lot of it was just stuff. As I recall, you dreamed a lot of it up, and we got the phlogiston chair and so forth. But you sort of put that together in a very interesting way, and then you built your visuals into it, the computer visuals that you were running at the time. And we had that one thing which that sort of biofeedback thing. I can't remember what it was called now, but it was something where it seems like people could
it
create
was
a visuals
biofeedback game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't remember.
but I know that there's an awful lot of work involved with that sort of thing, including a lot of grunt work. And I guess kind of the question I was getting at is, how well does working on online events or virtual events compare to whatever you've done before with physical events?
Yeah, well, there's that one was kind of spectacular in the amount of moving parts and gear. That's the only thing I've ever done that involved, you know, multiple vehicles worth of gear coming to the space, you know. And what do we have, like a 4-hour setup window? Although we were originally told that it would be overnight, was possible. And so I kind of brought my sleeping bag, you know, was ready to go all night. And
I remember.
so I haven't done that with a virtual event. I guess the one that I have that was the most intense that I've done, and I do feel like I spent about 15 hours prep work ahead of time, maybe, to make it happen, was something called the Burning Glam Virtual Fashion Show, which is, you know, maybe not everybody in the listenership knows that Austin has its version of Burning Man called Burning Flipside, and I've been to I guess every one since it started, and for the last several years I've been with a camp called Burning Glam that is a kind of a fashion or costume camp, meaning that we bring a truckload of costumes that people have sort of scrounged around through the year, and people are able to, once it's open, they're able to just come in and try things on and slice and dice and make a costume out of whatever's there with help from helpful volunteers. And I'm kind of the camp DJ there too. So, and I think people knew that I could do some things. So we said, well, we're not going to be able to have the festival this year, but a lot of people are doing various different online fun things that weekend. Like I think another group did a Minecraft Flipside, and you know, burn stuff. I think they had a volcano that went off at the end or something. But so what happened for ours was, and we were kind of ready for anything, but we encouraged people to send videos ahead of time that they made with their own music if they wanted. And I think we got maybe 10 submissions or something like that. And I wound up, I did not edit them together in one meeting, because the way that we normally run the fashion show is we have one or two MCs with mics, and I'm either DJing, or in one case, the most recent time we did it, I believe we actually did live music, where I had some sort of programmed beats and my friend Nigel playing bass and myself playing keyboards. That was great, because we're really able to adapt much more to the costume and the energy of people, like trying to sort of change the mood, you know, every minute for a parade of 30 or 40 people was a big challenge for DJing. So we kind of wanted to have this flavor, though, of live, live emceeing over it, so that people could, you know, the judge could talk over it and sort of respond. So we wound up with a kind of complicated configuration that I actually have. I made a document today, even though when I did it, I just, you know, kind of improvised everything and saved the files and sort of left it running for a week ahead of time or something. But so I finally went back and made kind of a system diagram of how all this stuff worked. And we pulled it off. I think we had some people who just showed up in the Zoom session, and we, you know, pinned their screen and they showed off their costume live. And we had some videos that maybe didn't have music, so I had to DJ those. And I basically consolidated everything together, including the Zoom stream and all these videos, and ran it into OBS and figured out a way to have my DJ software work with all of this stuff. And that turned out to be kind of a nightmare. Like, I don't know, I've done a lot of complicated stuff, but that was like
sounds like a stage manager's nightmare. I've done a bunch of that back in the day, and just trying to keep people, you know, where they're supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be, you know.
Yeah, well, I was basically doing stage management and, you know, live video mixing. And of course, I couldn't just make everything as simple as possible. I had to have both the Zoom session and my own webcam running through some sort of crazy effects, and then sort of broadcasting that back out. And, you know, it worked. I think the thing that was the most difficult was apparently there's just a bug in the older and not very supported version of this DJ software I was using that kind of didn't make it straightforward to both run it into the streaming software and monitor what I was doing. So it could basically work if I would hear the, you know, 3-second delayed version of it on the stream, but figuring out how to get it to be in real time so that I could kind of do things as though it were a musical instrument and play turned out to be the kicker. And you know, just took a lot of experimentation and searching on the web for people who explained it, usually in the context of some other application, because the one that I'm using is not the most popular.
Is this what you were using, OBS?
That is what I was using, along with some other software that I'll be happy to show if you guys want to let me screen share one of these times.
Sure, I think that screen sharing is turned on for everybody, so feel free.
Did you find any really serious deficiencies in OBS, or is it pretty well developed?
Well, I will say that I probably used just a subset of it. And I'll say that it's kind of unintuitive to me. There are a lot of things that I had to, you know, read the documentation, which often I don't on at least Mac-based music and media apps. You know, I'll usually get pretty far with things just with my intuition. So
yeah, I've run into that with various Mac apps. You know, it's definitely RTFM on a lot of these. You can't just go in and hope for the best.
Right. So what I did, as I mentioned, and I'm going to try to bring up in one of these apps, this. Okay, so let me try to.
Oh, wow.
So there I am. Now I need to switch over to my little diagram here, and see if I can get that guy visible on the screen. It might be that the easiest thing for me to do is going to be to get this thing. Let's see.
So what are we looking at right here? The actual.
Yeah, so the thing that you're seeing now that I'm moving the windows around and is called COGE or Koji or something, and this is I guess what I will call it is you know, visual software or a compositor switcher software. So this is kind of, it's meant to be used by, you know, VJs of the sort of creative visuals, not the, I mean, if you want to just play back music videos, you can, but it lets you do things like have a bank of media here and eventually switch that thing in.
So it's like a switcher for like multiple camera production, that kind of thing.
Right. So I am switching in here. This little final mixer thing that I've got is got several streams coming into it, including my webcam, a siphon source, which is siphon is a kind of pipeline for video feed from an application. It's kind of like an exchange pipeline to route video between applications. And trick is I put this thing together, a few minutes before we jumped in here, and what I'm trying to remember is where is my okay, there we go. Now I don't know if this is scalable. Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's nice.
Yeah. So so this is what I actually had going on with this event. So and we're, we could get a little bit close to this here, but I'm not proposing to run Zoom into it. But what I have going into Siphoner that I just mentioned, which is essentially it's a little app that I can find that lets me pick any window, and somehow the window that I had earlier is not going in here. I had my piano app in there for some reason, and that would probably explain why I didn't. But if I wanted to put Zoom in there, I could. And so now I'm going to see a Zoom.
That's handy.
So somehow there's like several Zoom sub windows. So now this is a source that I could route into the application and play around with it. Maybe we'll do that in a minute. So
that's a lot better than Zoom, because I've been able to do multi-camera, depending on how many USB ports I have open, which is not much on a Mac. So it's kind of clunky to switch between them. So that looks a lot more seamless.
Right. Yeah. So basically you've got like different kinds of mixers. So this is this is kind of a build your own interface thing. So like this is maybe one of the simpler ones, but you can still blend the different sources together, which is what I'm doing. But maybe while I've got this thing up, let's just kind of look at how it works. So I'm sending a webcam and Zoom into this, what I'll call a compositor, right? Because it can not only switch between sources, like somewhere I've got that switching window. Where did it go? So things are really slowing down a little bit here. With,
do you do overlays with with several screens, or?
Yeah, you can. I am in fact overlaying now, so that if I guess I'm looking at the main output, so I can blend I should be able to blend myself back in.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Oh, wow.
That's nice. I like that. That
yeah,
has a lot of functions.
A green screen or whatever, there are different ways to blend things. This is just a straight 4 layers where you can control the opacity.
The ghost in the machine.
Yeah. I should probably be able to send you guys in here too. You can figure out where you're at. So that's if I put siphon source up there, we're all in there.
Well, I see me somewhere.
Yeah, and I can run that through some, right?
Can you make me younger? Or is it that may be in a future version?
I suspect that that's coming if it's not there already.
One would hope.
So one thing that happens now, it's pretty easy for me to drop videos in there, but besides, this is potentially a live source. This is a live source, but I can also have my little collection of videos that I'm going to play. So in the fashion show, I had those, and they were basically filling up this spot. Here, I've just got one video that I put in, which is a thing that I did. So I think the date is 2007 or something, just kind of an ambient video piece. So that was the way that I was going to switch between things, but I did not want the videos to use their own sound. So I actually wound up having two different ways to handle if it was video only and I was providing the sound by DJing up here, then the video was coming in here. If the video had its own sound and some of them were very like dancey and choreographed, then I had to bring that straight into OBS. Otherwise, I would have had to be like switching this thing on and off, like going into the interface and finding the.
Okay, I see your output section there, the output box. You have Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Are those the only ones, or are there other places where it's?
I think there are others. Those were the ones that maybe the most popular ones. And I think I only figured out or tried to use Twitch.
Yeah, we've been looking at Twitch. I set up just a quick and dirty channel there, but we haven't really had the time yet to go out and test it out and kind of do a sandbox thing to see how it works with what we do. But I've heard, or from what I've seen on Twitch, I like a lot of the work that I see done there. It seems to be better quality.
So what I heard, and I don't know, I mean, the landscape is always changing, but at one point, as opposed to YouTube and Facebook, Twitch did not shut you down fast for any content that their sniffers determined was copyrighted content that you didn't have a license for. So when I'm DJing, I am mostly playing stuff that's fairly obscure, but I didn't want the stream to get shut down. So that's part of the motivation.
That's always a big concern. I have to deal with that on my internet radio stations because, they monitor them pretty closely. So if you start playing copyrighted stuff on something that doesn't have a license agreement, the RIA tends to come after you, or SoundScan, whoever happens to be looking at you, and they can be ugly. So I try to avoid that. It's better just to make sure that you have the license to do that.
Yeah. So I guess if all you're doing is DJing or something, then you take your chance, and I think your stream gets shut down. You may wind up in some legal difficulty or something. But
they're not known for their sense of humor, as far as I know. The RIAA does not own one, so they're not real easy to deal with.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess looking at this, you're sort of getting a sense that it was a little bit complicated to figure out and make all this stuff work. So, I mean, the goals were that I was going to be able to hear myself talk, as we all want to, and have a relatively complex sound generation. Now, I think that it was not so hard to get it to work and get the sound out to stream. The tricky part was for me to be able to hear it through the loud sound system in my room so that I could actually kind of feel it when I was teaching. And that maybe 10 of the hours that I spent were just trying to make that part work. And
sometimes headphones can be the better approach there. I love the sound of my studio monitors also, but
I think it was not. I think it was basically anytime you had two devices for monitoring, and anyway, it was. was a bit of an ordeal, and you can see like over here the kind of the details in here where it got really ugly, and I had to play around. But this making a lot of this stuff work, like using some kind of switcher software. This is something where I had been using something called Anodyne Composer from around 1999 or 2000 until it became impossible to use it because it was something that was originally written for Mac OS 9 and then was kind of immediately cut off at the knees like a year later. And they never really managed financially to pull off a port because the guys that had written the software had kind of moved on to other roles in other companies, and but it ran pretty well. So I used it until I just kind of couldn't use it because they stopped supporting those PowerPC generation apps, and it was time to find something else new. And I started looking around at some of the options, and generally the way that I looked at this is my needs are kind of simple in some ways. I think I have certain kind of video feedback kind of tendencies and tricks and ways that I like to work with video, and I feel like almost any of the apps could have done it. So I felt like maybe they're all going to be unreliable and crash and make me cry. So how about finding the one that, let's start with the one that's not very expensive, and and then I'll cry less. And it turned out to be pretty good. Like I won't say I've never had it crash, and I've probably been using this for 10 years now or something, and it's maybe once it's crashed in a performance situation. So anyway, so that's what I wound up with, and it's pretty flexible. It kind of lets you roll your own interface, and it lets you do things like attach knobs. So like this is a pretty common convention that if you just saw the color change there, that's because it's sort of waiting for me to click on one of the interfaces devices and do something. Okay, so I've just attached a controller. So now I've got like a little keyboard with knobs on it that is going to allow me to play this thing in real time like an instrument.
It seems like it works a bit like the digital audio cables system. I've just been looking at that. Some of those friends, in fact, Joey Lopez, I think, was using it, and it's a nice way to wire inside your computer instead of having a bunch of external cables.
Right, and a lot of, this is a little bit abstract compared to a lot of these kinds of tools. Some of them will actually allow you to put wires together, so it's a sort of graph or a node-based programming system, and this is a little bit more like you just build these interface parts and you sort of add things as you like on a project basis. So you've got all these components like a clip synth, an effect chain, a sequencer. So if you want to work with things that are beat locked to the music, you can do that. So you can step through a sequence of videos or stills or whatever that is in time with music, and I've occasionally done that. And in the end, you can kind of attach these things. So I will typically maybe create several of these sort of video interfaces and turn them on with here's like turning effects on, but I don't really have any effects yet, so I would have to make something and create an effect. And so let's see what we got here. Radial replicate. This is probably kind of crazy. And now if I turn that on and do something with it.
So what you're dealing with there are kind of like wet dry controls.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was kind of expecting that when I turned that on, I would see this thing turn into a bunch of echoing images or something, but I don't believe I've actually ever used this particular effect before, so I'm not seeing it do anything.
Yeah, it seems to be a little bit. Yeah, I use a program called Waveform that
Right.
I had learned about that Mark Mothersbaugh was really hot on, and so I tried it, and it's really nice. It allows you to wire up your various effects, creating special presets for just inside the program rather than to have a bunch of expensive outboard gear, and that looks very similar.
Yeah, that is exactly the thing. So you've got all these visual effects that are kind of like ranging from Photoshop kind of things to glitch. Let's
Oh, that's nice.
edge blowout, poly glitch.
So they have quite a few presets that come.
There we go. So I just turned my diagram into this, and and yeah, I can make it. So that's the basic idea with that thing. So you're able to run the same thing. So I could take the source here that has our zoom image, our pictures coming in, and also turn that effects chain on. And if I could ever figure out where we are here, I could probably make that. Okay, so that's that guy. Siphon source, if I want that to be the one that's on. Let's see, I'll have to turn everybody else down. Are we in there? So there's us, and then us with the glitch effect is poly glitch. Okay, so there we are.
Okay.
We are shattered.
Yeah, modern art version of myself. I like that. It's easy to look at.
Yeah, so that was going on, and I had some kind of system set up to when I was DJing, I was nodding my head and making the music go, and I also had kind of things floating around in space around me, little abstractions that I managed to put in a kind of green screen affair. So that's how all that came together. And let me just kind of bring OBS into the picture and kind of show you a little bit of how that was set up. So here we are. And the way OBS works is that you set up what are called scenes. And if you want to create a new one, you just go down and hit the plus, and it'll come up with yet another, I guess, another name. I'll call it scene 2. And it's going to add it in here, and then you add sources in. But let me just go back to so whenever you save your project, you can have multiple scenes, which are collections of sources, or maybe a source on top. So if you want to have, in this case, my source on top is this application we were just playing around in called COGE or Kogi. But I could, individually, I could essentially push this to the top, and whatever is in my Siphon client without the effects on it, I was thinking would come to the top, but I'm not sure if that happened or not.
So it allows you to have presets of the various things that you want to have hooked up to where you can just dial it in.
That's right. And I think that normally they don't expect that you're going to be changing these things on the fly during a session, but the idea is that you set up a set of scenes, and then when you transition from one to the other by selecting them here, you can also put some kind of transition in there, and a cut or a crossfade or something, and you can control the time of the crossfade. But once you get all of these sources set up and the audio then that part is pretty easy. So start recording and start streaming, and it will go. You, as you might expect, have to kind of come in and do a little configuration. So here I've got my stream key from Twitch. And let's look at what the other options are.
That's nice that you can store those keys, because that's becoming very widespread now, that does prevent all those nasty bombers that come in and invade your space.
Right. And you've got options like, the bit rate and which encoders you're using, and when you record, what's the quality, what format. And I guess I probably did have to set up that much. I know that I'm using 720, and I'm not sure where that was set. Was that back here on stream? Don't see it. Maybe that's in the... Okay, so... Oh, maybe it's video. There we go. So here's where you set the resolution, and if you're downscaling, like if COGE is set up, which it is right now, I have it set up at 1080p. So I guess no wonder this thing is slow a little bit, because it's downscaling on the fly.
Oh yeah, that'll do it up.
Probably is using both COGE and this thing use the GPU, so they're kind of good. But yeah, if I was going to do that over again, and maybe I should have put that on the flow diagram, you probably would like to set the COGE software to also to 720 to start, because I know for sure it uses a GPU, and it's very fast to do all that kind of scaling and stuff. So what else do we have? The audio was the kind of fanciest or trickiest configuration, and this is something where I am told that the Mac implementation of this is, or at least in some version, was a little bit perhaps defective in this one feature down here, which is the monitoring device. So this is where I'm coming out to my USB audio interface, and I had a little bit of issue trying to get that thing to work reliably as I kind of went through prepping for this. In fact, I had it working yesterday and was, streaming, hearing myself in the room, and everything was good. And then it would drop out after a while. Like, I think it was still streaming, but I couldn't hear myself. And the streaming example that I cooked up was using a software piano that sort of shows the notes that you're playing.
So this is running on PC rather than Mac right now?
Yeah, you're running on a PC. Well, OBS is there. I don't know exactly what to, if you wanted, you don't necessarily have, for your purposes, I think you would be fine to just bring Zoom in there. You may need...
Yeah, well, I've either or. I have Macs and PCs here. I have way too many machines. But I'm just wondering, you're running Scarlett interface, and does that also work on PC with great ease, or is it twitchy there as well?
I don't think it's the hardware. I think there's something about the monitoring software in the Mac. I doubt that it's a hardware issue, but it just seems like it's working, and then it dropped after a while. And I've never had any kind of issues like that with that device in any other software. And just in looking online, I saw it mentioned that the monitoring seemed to be a little bit flaky on Mac. But generally here, this section is where you can kind of create as many of these auxiliary devices as you want. And that's a way to give you a mixer inside of OBS that kind of allows you to, on the fly, kind of, I could mute my microphone, for example. If I wanted to play loud and maybe there was a feedback issue because what I'm hearing in the room is now going to come in through my built-in mic, then I could mute it in OBS, I guess. yeah, so that's that. Let's just maybe take a quick look at the audio portion of it so we can see how that works. So here, you're able to blend a few different inputs. So I think I've got this set up with, you guys hear that?
Yep.
Do you hear it like it sounds pretty good, or you hear it like it's coming through my microphone on the mic on the Mac?
No, that sounds direct. Yeah.
Does it sound like the soundboard in a good club?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Anyway, that's one that's a little bit hard because the monitor, I think, is not necessarily working in here, or at least it's, I'm hearing it, and I did not check. I found one time that it was coming in, like if I recorded it, it was there, sound was there. So it was just this monitoring thing was a little bit weird. So I've maybe found another way to do that. But yeah, so that's how I've done sort of complex event management. And I don't know about everybody else. I did DJ after the party for a while, and had a few people on there rocking out. That was great. I haven't done it as much, subsequently, but you never know. And I thought, it's interesting to just and I should just note that I, as an actual musician who plays and produces and all this stuff, I was a little bit reluctant to ever wear the the mantle of DJ. And John was actually the first guy that ever both called me a DJ and hooked me up with an event by Salona Bonewald, kind of hackathon thing that she was putting together. And John said, well, I know a DJ. And that was the beginning of my semi-pro DJ career. And I turned out to, enjoy it quite a bit. And I've got a big collection and a certain kind of style that I don't think too many other people in Austin do. I really focus on, sort of African and Brazilian music, and what's maybe like new jazz, neo soul. So it's all fairly complex music that is interesting to musicians. So I like to think of myself as a musician's DJ. And yeah, anyway, so I guess I can thank John for that nudge. But so we have a few minutes left, and I don't know if y'all want, I can try to reconfigure things over here a little bit and maybe get a blend of this movie playing and me messing around with Ableton Live and my keyboards and kind of producing a track here that, if you like it, we can hook you up and can be the new Plutopia.
Cool.
Might need a little work, but
hey, we're open.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see if I can. What I'm going to need to do now is go into Siphon and switch it to use the Ableton Live window instead of whatever it's doing now. Siphoner, Earth to Siphoner. Come, Siphoner, do you read me? So, am I streaming? Application is not responding. Well, I guess what you'll see then is the Buddha and a little bit of me.
It's been that kind of day for us.
Yeah, we had that earlier when the technical gods did not smile upon me.
Yeah, when we were doing the radio show.
A cable decided to unplug itself.
Well, what I think is that you'll be able to hear something anyway. And maybe
work.
Turn this around so that we see the keyboards, and to the extent that I can make all the things go at the same time. Now let's just see if I have better luck with Ableton Live coming up. Now I wonder if I'm actually streaming, because if OBS is
it looked really really slow, like when you've got like 1K connection to the modem.
Yeah. Well, we're asking the machine to do quite a bit here. It's it got hot when I was actually doing all this, when I start streaming and doing the video and the audio all at the same time. The little puppy's working pretty hard. But all right, so now I'm going to get my music software back, and let's try to make it go. All right.
Okay. That was cool.
Yeah. At first, it sounded like you had some sort of a gate kicking in. It was when you got a little high, it was really seriously gating you down to almost nothing. But then you seem to have cleared that up.
We are theoretically, we are actually out of time now.
Yeah.
But that was pretty great.
Yeah. We need to work on that, because I could use a new theme for a music bed, or for a vocal bed is what it always serves as, because we like to play it under the interviews.
So, David, thank you. Let's come back and do some more of this sometime soon.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think need a little bit of time beforehand to kind of get it together is the thing. Yeah. What I found in this experience right now is probably with all of the things that I'm going, like I was getting some delay, like when I was playing, it's kind of right at the edge. I would say it's about 40 or 50 milliseconds, and under 30, you can usually deal with it and feel like you just kind of feel like you're playing with mittens on, Bernie's mittens or something. But
it's okay. We're kind of workshopping it anyway.
Sure.
Woodshed. Well, thanks a lot.
Sure.
We
Thanks,
will
David.
see you soon.
We'll see you again.
Bye, guys.
Off we go. Thanks.